Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Those, of course, are the immortal words of Winston Churchill, describing the efforts of the Royal Air Force and other Allied aircrew who were fighting in the Battle of Britain against Nazi Germany during World War II. Down through the centuries, there have been certain words, such as I've just related, about war or a particular battle that have become part of the record of human history. The War of 1812 is no exception. Let me share a few examples. Don't give up the ship. Those words were spoken to his crew by the mortally wounded Captain James Lawrence, commander of the American frigate Chesapeake, shortly before, as it turned out, the British captured his ship. It was June the 1st, 1813. Don't give up the ship is now the unofficial motto of the United States Navy. As darkness descended during the Battle of Lundy's Lane on July 25, 1814, Major General Jacob Brown, commander of the American forces, ordered Lieutenant Colonel James Miller, in charge of the 21st Infantry, to take his regiment and capture the heavy British artillery positioned on the top of what we now know as Drummond Hill. Miller's response was, "I'll try, sir." Not long after, the 21st attacked and took the British guns, dramatically altering the course of the battle. "I'll try, sir," is now the motto of the 5th Infantry Regiment of the United States Army, the modern descendant of the 21st Infantry. Probably the most famous comment about the War of 1812 came from Thomas Jefferson, who served as President of the United States from 1801 to 1809. In early August of 1812, approximately 8 weeks after the United States had declared war on Great Britain, Jefferson had this to say: "The acquisition of Canada this year will be a mere matter of marching." So, as we are now assembled this evening on a very important War of 1812 battle site, the question begs asking, are there any memorable words from or about the Battle of Chippawa? The answer is yes. The words are, "Those are regulars," or "Those are regulars, by God." The man some writers about the battle have credited with saying those words was Major General Phineas Riall, commander of the British forces here on July the 5th, 1814. However, there is a problem in that there is no historical evidence that Major General Riall actually said those words, even though he would have been justified in making such a comment. That's because as he watched the American forces deploy here at the start of the battle, he noted that instead of regulation blue, their uniforms were gray, the color usually worn by the American rather poorly trained militia. Riall was certain, therefore, that his well-trained, highly disciplined British regulars would have no trouble in dealing with the American enemy. But he soon realized his error. The Americans were holding their line and not faltering under intense British firepower. Obviously, in spite of the gray uniforms, the American soldiers were regulars. After about 25 minutes, the Battle of Chippawa ends, as Riall, seeing his line starting to waver and unable to sustain an advance, as well as suffering many casualties, orders a withdrawal from the field. This was done in good order. It was a highly disappointing defeat for Riall and his men. Throughout the action, Riall had led from the front, exposing himself fearlessly, as one historian has noted, almost as if he were courting death. So what else do we know about the courageous Phineas Riall? For starters, we know he was born in Ireland in 1775 and entered the Army when he was 19. He had a rapid rise in seniority. From 1805 to 1810, Riall served in the West Indies. He was made a major general in 1813 and posted to Canada that same year. During December of 1813, he was ordered to lead a campaign of retribution that destroyed the communities along the American side of the Niagara River, from Lewiston to Buffalo. This was in retaliation for the Americans' deliberate destruction by fire of what is now Niagara-on-the-Lake earlier that month. 20 days after the Battle of Chippawa, Riall was in the thick of the action at the Battle of Lundy's Lane. During that mainly nighttime bloody conflict, Riall received a severe arm wound and then was captured by the Americans. For the next 5 months, he was held with other prisoners of war in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where, in spite of some confinement, the men were treated well. A fellow prisoner was William Hamilton Merritt from what is now St. Catharines. Merritt, who later in life became well known as the chief promoter of the first Welland Canal, described Riall as, quote, very brave, nearsighted, rather short, but stout, unquote. Others complimented him on having what were described as courteous manners. Riall was paroled and then sailed for England in December of 1814. He was appointed governor of Grenada in 1816 and held that post until 1823. During this period, he married Elizabeth Scarlett in 1819. A very high honor came his way in 1833 when he was knighted. 8 years later, he was made a full general. General Sir Phineas Riall, a name that will forever be a part of this historic ground story, died peacefully, as one account notes, in Paris, France, on November the 10th, 1850. He was 74 years old.